Hi guys, I just want to show you something that are modifications that I've done to my MJX models. MJX is a very good brand, but the range of them is not the best. Now this MJX 101 over here has got plenty of room inside the fuselage to put a transmitter so you can fly it with the goggles, but the range wasn't much good. So what I did was I unsoldered the aerial they had inside there. It was only about an inch long, and I got a piece of shielded wire and I cut the shielding off the last piece the same length as the aerial they had in there, so it now gets the aerial right outside, which gets a better signal. Also, the transmitter had the aerial right down here somewhere, which was all covered up by my hands, and you could only get about 100 meters, but with the goggles you want to fly 200 or 300 meters, so I also put a piece of shielded wire, soldered it onto there and have it coming out there, so that gives me a good range. You'll notice with MJX models, this transmitter is switchable. Now I fly mode 1, which is the throttle on this side, and this is mode 2, but you can just do this and now you've got the throttle on this side, so that's a very good feature with MJX transmitters. Now this model over here is an MJX 906. That came with the throttle on the wrong side for me because I'm mode 1. I want the throttle on this side. So what I did was I took the 4 screws off the back here and opened it up, and I unsoldered the stick pots directly off the board. Now down here I'll show you what it's like. You unsolder these wires here and here and here and here. Now to do that you need one of these solder suckers. Now you push that in and it's got a button. Now you heat up the solder till it's really hot, and then you suck the solder out. And you do that on all these solder joints, and that means you can take the stick pots right off like this. You can take them right off. Now I want the throttle mode 1. See, at mode 2 the throttle is over here, and I want to put it over this side for mode 1. So I simply took these stick units off and I put that one over there and I put this one over here. Now you'll notice that the aileron and the throttle are both the same on both modes. So this is aileron here. When it's mode 2, this is over here with the throttle over here, but you'll see the aileron and is both the same on mode 1. Mode 1, there's the rudder, and here's the rudder on mode 2. But when you take the throttle off and put it over here, you don't really have to do anything with the aileron rudder because you solder it back straight into there, and it automatically becomes a rudder on there and aileron over there. But with the elevators, with the throttle, you now have to solder some wires. Because you've put the throttle over there, you have to solder some wires onto these points and solder it onto this side where it came from. And you also do the same thing with the ailerons. You put some wires going from here over to here. Now you'll know what I'm talking about once you pull the back off, and that means you've now got mode 1 if you fly mode 1. Now also these little MJX 906 haven't got a very good range at all. So you just take these 4 screws out of the bottom here, just 4 screws, and that lid will come off, and you drill a tiny little hole in there and you bring the aerial out the top so it's not too bound up with all the other electronics, because these models will drop out of the sky if you don't have a decent range, and it's very easy to fly out of range. The other thing I did, when I had the back off, I drilled a tiny little hole in here and brought the aerial out. It already had this big long wire on it, so I brought the aerial out and I stuck it on the back with a bit of tape. Another good idea is to mark all these buttons. There's so many buttons on here that you forget what they're all for. So if you put a little bit of masking tape on the back there, you can remember what they're for. Now another thing about this model is the LED lights. They just put them inside these motor tubes, and you couldn't see them in the daylight. Now I'll plug it in and let you have a little look. Now what I did was I pulled them out. They're just lying in there loose. I pulled them out, and there's little eyes in the front of this model that were already there, and I just taped them in front of the eyes. Now you can see it in broad daylight. And at the back it had a hole in here, so I pulled it out of the tube and put it in front of this hole. Now I can see that in daylight too. Normally they're in the arms like this and you can't see them in daylight at all. Now it was like this, you see, black, so I scraped a bit of the paint off and I still couldn't see it in daylight. So that's a good mode to do. Put the lights outside. Now also outside, these screens are not that bright. Let's see if we can see it now. Yes, see that screen there? It looks alright when you're inside, you can see quite well, but outside the sun shines on your screen and you can't really see it. So a good idea is to get a piece of cardboard and make a shield up like this and just stick it on there with a bit of sellotape. That works very well. Now while we're here, I'll just show you one other little thing. I also converted this to mode 1 by unsoldering these stick units and shift them over. That's quite easy to do if you've got a soldering iron. Now that's a E-Chine H8, which is very good for flying inside with your goggles. All you have to do is cut a little hole in the top here and stick one of these little E-Chine camera transmitters in. They're very good. In fact, they're much better than this one. This has got a very narrow field of view lens, and it's practically impossible to fly inside as an FPV model. But that one's very good. Okay, guys, that's about all for now, and I hope that helps you figure out some modifications that you can do yourself. Bye.